The fluorescent lights of the Grand Seoul Hotel's 20th floor hummed their usual midnight song. Adanna Okafor pushed her cleaning cart down the empty corridor, her body aching from 10 hours of scrubbing toilets and changing sheets. The name tag on her uniform read Anna, because the hotel manager said her real name was too difficult for guests to pronounce. She was 23 years old, halfway through a business degree at Seoul National University that she attended during the day, and completely exhausted. Her father's voice echoed in her head from their last phone call to Lagos. Just 2 more years, Ada. Then you come home and help with the family business. Except there was no family business anymore. Her father had died 3 months ago, and with him went everything. The debts he'd hidden, the loans from dangerous people, the lies about their success. Her mother had called last week, crying. The amount, $10 million. The deadline, 6 months. The consequences, unthinkable. Adanna had stopped sleeping after that call. She knocked on room 2047. No answer. She used her master key and pushed the door open. The scene that greeted her would replay in her nightmares for years to come. 2 men in suits stood over a third man zip-tied to a chair. The seated man's face was swollen, blood dripping from his nose. One of the standing men held a gun with a silencer. Time stopped. All 3 men turned to look at her. Adanna's cart clattered as her hands went numb. The water bottle she'd been holding hit the floor. Room service, she whispered stupidly in Korean, her accent thick with panic. The man with the gun raised it toward her. She ran. Behind her, she heard shouting in Korean. A muffled pop. Then footsteps, heavy and fast. Adanna's heart thundered as she sprinted toward the service elevator. Her fingers jabbed the button frantically. The footsteps grew closer. She could hear them breathing, cursing. The elevator dinged. She threw herself inside and punched the button for the basement. As the doors began to close, a hand shot through the gap. Adanna screamed, kicking at it with all her strength. The hand withdrew with a grunt of pain, and the doors sealed shut. The elevator descended, and Adanna collapsed against the wall, sobbing. She had witnessed a murder. She was an undocumented worker. She was dead. Adanna never made it home that night. They grabbed her in the parking garage. A cloth over her mouth, chemical sweet and suffocating. Then darkness. When she woke, she was in a concrete room with no windows. Her hands were bound. Her uniform was gone, replaced with a simple black dress. And she wasn't alone. 12 other women sat against the walls, all of them looking as terrified as she felt. They were different ages, different nationalities. None of them spoke. An older Korean woman in expensive clothes entered the room. She walked down the line, examining each woman like livestock. When she reached Adanna, she stopped. Tilted her head. Pulled out her phone and made a call. Yes, I found something interesting, she said in Korean. An African girl. Very beautiful. She looks exactly like the photo you showed me. A pause. Yes, I'll reserve her for the premium auction. Adanna's Korean was good enough to understand every word. 3 days later, they took her to the auction. The venue was an underground warehouse in Gangnam, converted into a grotesque theater. Men in expensive suits filled the seats. On stage, women were paraded one by one while an auctioneer called out their qualities in cold, transactional language. Adanna was last. When they pushed her onto the stage, the spotlight blinded her. She stood there in a white evening gown they'd forced her into, trying not to cry, trying not to collapse. The auctioneer began, "Our final item tonight is special. 23 years old, Nigerian, university educated, speaks English and Korean. Starting bid, 10 million won." The number made Adanna's stomach turn. That was almost $8,000. 12 million. 15 million. 20 million. The bids climbed higher and higher. Adanna couldn't see the bidders through the lights, just heard their voices calling out numbers like she was a painting, a car, a thing. Then a new voice cut through the room, deep and commanding, silencing everyone else. 200 million won. The room went dead quiet. 200 million going once, the auctioneer sounded shocked. Going twice. Another voice, angry, 250 million. 300 million, the first voice said, bored now, as if the money meant nothing. Going once, going twice. Sold to Kang Min-Jun for 300 million won. Adanna's legs gave out. Guards caught her before she hit the stage. 300 million won. That was over $250,000. For her. Why? The car that took her from the auction was a black Mercedes with windows so tinted she couldn't see out. 2 silent guards sat in front. Adanna sat in back, still in the white gown, her wrists now bound with soft rope instead of zip ties. They drove for an hour, leaving the city, climbing into the mountains. Finally, they turned onto a private road that led to a massive modern compound, all glass and steel and darkness. Inside, the house was cold and beautiful. Minimalist furniture, expensive art, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over Seoul's glittering skyline far below. A man stood with his back to her, looking out those windows. "Leave us," he said in Korean. The guards left. The door locked behind them. Adanna's heart raced as the man slowly turned around. Kang Min-Jun was perhaps 30 years old, tall and lean, dressed in all black. His face was sharp and handsome in the way of old Korean paintings, elegant, cold, refined. But it was his eyes that made Adanna's breath catch. They were completely empty, like looking into a frozen lake. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and stopped a foot away, studying her face with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Incredible," he whispered. "You look exactly like her." "Like who?" Adanna's voice came out hoarse. He reached out and touched her face. She flinched, but he gripped her chin, turning her head left and right, examining her like a specimen. "Her name was Ji-woo," he said softly. "She was the only person I ever loved. And she's dead because of me." He released Adanna and walked to a bookshelf. When he returned, he held a photograph. The woman in the picture took Adanna's breath away. She was Korean, beautiful, with long dark hair and a bright smile. But the shape of her face, the set of her eyes, the curve of her lips, it was like looking in a mirror. They could have been sisters. "This is why I bought you," Min-Jun said. "You will live here. You will wear her clothes. You will eat at her table. You will sleep in her bed. You will become her ghost." "I'm not her," Adanna said, finding her voice. "I'm not your dead girlfriend." "No," Min-Jun agreed. "You're not. But you'll pretend. Because the alternative is that I sell you to the next highest bidder. A trafficking ring in China. They offered 250 million, remember? And they won't be as gentle with you as I intend to be." Adanna felt the room spin. "This is insane." "This is survival," Min-Jun corrected. "Yours and mine. I need her back, even if it's just a shadow. And you need protection. The men you saw kill someone at the hotel? They work for the Busan cartel. They saw your face. They will find you and kill you. Unless you're under my protection. You're a criminal." "I'm the head of the Kang family," Min-Jun said. "The most powerful organization in Seoul. And yes, that makes me a criminal. But it also makes me the only person in South Korea who can keep you alive." He pulled out his phone and showed her a news article. Her own face stared back at her from the screen. "Nigerian student wanted for questioning in hotel murder." They'd framed her. Adanna's knees buckled. Min-Jun caught her, his hand surprisingly gentle. "You have no family here," he said quietly. "No documents. No rights. No one who will miss you." You saw something you shouldn't have seen, and now you're a liability. To everyone. Except me. He lifted her chin so she had to meet his eyes. Be my ghost, Adanna. Let me pretend you're her. And I'll make sure you survive this. Adanna wanted to spit in his face. Wanted to fight. But she thought about her mother in Lagos, about the men who would come for her family if she died here, about having no one and nothing in this foreign country. How long, she whispered. Until I can let her go, Min-Jun said. And if you never can? He didn't answer. The first week was hell. Min-Jun had his people bring Ji-woo's entire wardrobe from storage. Hundreds of designer dresses, shoes, accessories. Everything expensive, everything carefully preserved. He made Adanna try them on, one by one, watching her with those dead eyes. Ji-woo wore that to our first dinner, he'd say. She loved that necklace. She hated heels but wore them for me. Adanna felt like she was being buried alive in another woman's life. He showed her photographs, videos, told her stories. Ji-woo had been a classical pianist. She'd loved cherry blossoms and hated summer. She'd laughed like music and cried silently. She'd been kind and stubborn and scared of storms. Why did she die? Adanna finally asked one night. They were sitting in the vast dining room, eating dinner in silence as had become their routine. Min-Jun looked up from his untouched food. Because I loved her too much to let her go, he said. And she tried to leave me anyway. The pain in his voice was the first real emotion Adanna had heard from him. She died in a car accident, he continued. Running away from me. From this life. I was chasing her when it happened. The rain, the mountain roads, the speed. She lost control. That's not your fault, Adanna said quietly. Isn't it? Min-Jun's laugh was bitter. I'm a monster, Adanna. I kept her in a cage of gold and called it love. And when she tried to fly, she fell. Something in Adanna's chest twisted. She recognized pain when she saw it. She'd been carrying her own for months. My father died too, she found herself saying. 3 months ago. Heart attack. But really, he died from the stress of lying to us about how bad things were. He built a life on debts and secrets, and when it collapsed, it killed him. Min-Jun looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. You're angry with him, he observed. I'm furious with him, Adanna admitted. He left my mother and me with nothing but enemies and bills. $10 million in debt to dangerous people. And I'm here, trapped in your house, wearing a dead woman's clothes, because I can't go home and face what he left behind. How much do you need? Min-Jun asked suddenly. What? To pay off your father's debts. How much? Adanna stared at him. $10 million. But I can't. Consider it done. What? No. I don't want your money. You're already mine, Adanna. I bought you, remember? Your debts are my debts now. I'll have the money transferred tomorrow. Adanna felt tears burn her eyes. Why would you do that? Min-Jun stood and walked to the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. Because Ji-woo would have wanted me to, he said quietly. She believed people deserved second chances. Even monsters like me. A month passed. Then 2. The arrangement continued, strange and surreal. Adanna lived in Ji-woo's room, wore Ji-woo's clothes, sat in Ji-woo's seat at dinner. Min-Jun watched her like a man watching a mirage, afraid to blink in case it disappeared. But something was changing. Min-Jun started asking Adanna about herself. What she liked, what she thought, what she dreamed about. At first, she thought it was just another mind game, but gradually she realized he was genuinely curious. You're studying business, he asked one evening. I was, Adanna corrected. Before all this. Why business? Because back home, women like me don't get many chances. I wanted to build something. Prove I could be more than what people expected. You remind me of her, Min-Jun said. That same fire. Ji-woo was like that too. She fought against everything I represented, even while loving me. Did you love her? Adanna asked. Or did you love owning her? The question hung in the air like a blade. Min-Jun was quiet for a long time. I don't know anymore, he finally admitted. Maybe I never knew the difference. Another week passed, and Adanna discovered something that changed everything. She was looking for a book in Min-Jun's study when she found the folder. Inside were documents, photographs, surveillance reports. All about her. Min-Jun had known about her father's debts before the auction. He'd known she was vulnerable, desperate, alone. He'd even known about the hotel murder. His own people had arranged it, had made sure she was working that night, that she'd witness it, that she'd be framed. The entire thing had been orchestrated. Not because he needed a ghost. But because the moment he saw her photograph, researching potential victims for his trafficking operation, he'd seen Ji-woo's face. And he'd decided he had to have her, no matter what it took. Adanna was holding the folder when Min-Jun walked in. He saw it in her hands and stopped. You planned all of this, Adanna said, her voice shaking with rage. The murder, the frame job, everything. You made me a victim so you could save me. So you could own me. Yes, Min-Jun said simply. You're insane. I'm in love with a ghost, Min-Jun said. What did you expect? I expected you to at least be honest. Adanna threw the folder at him. Papers scattered across the floor. You told me I had no choice, that I needed your protection. But you're the one who put me in danger in the first place. Would you have come to me any other way? Min-Jun's voice was calm, which made it worse. Would you have let me help you? Love you? Become what I needed? I'm not Ji-woo. I know. Min-Jun's composure finally shattered. He crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed her shoulders. I know you're not her. You think I don't know? Every time you laugh, it's different. The way you argue with me, the way you look at me like I'm a monster instead of a man, Ji-woo never looked at me like that. Not until the end. His grip loosened, and his voice dropped to a whisper. You're not her ghost, Adanna. You're you. And somewhere in the last 2 months, I started loving you for that instead. Adanna's breath caught. I'm still a monster, Min-Jun continued. I still did terrible things to bring you here. But I can't let you go. I won't. Not to your father's debts, not to the people who want you dead, not to anything. You're mine now. That's not love, Adanna whispered. Then what is it? Obsession. Min-Jun smiled, sad and broken. Maybe. But it's all I have. That night, Adanna tried to escape. She waited until Min-Jun was asleep, then crept through the house. She'd memorized the guard rotations, the security codes, the blind spots in the cameras. She made it all the way to the front gate before the alarms went off. Min-Jun found her standing in the rain, the gate open in front of her, freedom just 10 steps away. Why did you stop? He asked. Adanna didn't turn around. Because I realized I don't have anywhere to go. Your father's debts are paid. You're free. Am I? She finally turned to face him. You said the Busan cartel wants me dead. You said I'm framed for murder. How am I free? I can clear your name, Min-Jun said. I have the evidence, the witnesses, the power to make it all disappear. I was always going to clear it. I just wanted you to stay long enough to choose me. You can't force someone to love you, Min-Jun. I know. He walked closer, stopping just outside of arm's reach. So I'm giving you a choice now. Walk through that gate. I'll clear your name, give you money, make sure you're safe. You'll never see me again. And if I stay? Then stay because you want to. Not because you're Jiwoo's ghost. Not because you're trapped. But because you choose this. Choose me. Adanna looked at him, really looked at him. This broken man who'd orchestrated her kidnapping because he couldn't let go of the past. This monster who'd shown her more gentleness than she'd expected. This stranger who'd somehow learned her favorite food, who left books he thought she'd like on her nightstand, who watched her with eyes that were no longer quite so dead. You're going to hurt me, she said. Probably, Min-Jun admitted. You're going to try to control me. I'll try not to. You're going to love me the wrong way. Then teach me the right way. Adanna felt tears on her cheeks, mixing with the rain. I can't trust you. I know. I should hate you. You probably should. But I don't. The admission came out like a sob. God help me, Min-Jun, but I don't hate you. He closed the distance between them and pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against his chest, crying for everything she'd lost, everything she'd gained, everything she was choosing despite knowing better. I don't want to be your ghost, she whispered against his shirt. You're not, he said into her hair. You're my resurrection. Three weeks later, everything fell apart. The Busan cartel discovered where Adanna was. More importantly, they discovered why she was valuable, not because she'd witnessed a murder, but because she was certified virgin according to medical records seized during her kidnapping. In the underground world of human trafficking, that made her worth millions to the right buyers. Chinese businessmen, Middle Eastern princes, collectors who paid premium prices for unspoiled goods. The offer came to Min-Jun directly, $35 million for Adanna. 3 times what he'd paid. He burned the message in front of her. They'll come for me, Adanna said quietly. Let them try. They tried 3 days later. The attack came at dawn. 15 men, heavily armed, storming the compound. Min-Jun's guards fought back, but they were outnumbered. Gunfire shattered the morning quiet. Min-Jun grabbed Adanna and pulled her into a panic room hidden behind his study. Steel walls, reinforced door, enough supplies for a week. Stay here, he ordered. No matter what you hear, don't come out until my second-in-command gives you the all-clear code, Cherry Blossom. What about you? I'm going to remind them why people fear the Kang family. He kissed her once, hard and desperate, then locked her inside. Through the panic room's monitors, Adanna watched the battle unfold. Min-Jun moved through his house like a demon, cold and efficient. He killed 3 men in his living room. 2 more on the stairs. He was beautiful and terrible, and Adanna couldn't look away. But there were too many. They cornered him in the main hall. Adanna watched him go down under a rain of bullets, watched him fall, watched the monitors go black as someone destroyed the cameras. She screamed. Then the panic room door exploded inward. The Busan cartel's leader walked in, smiling. Hello, valuable girl. You're coming with us. No, Adanna grabbed the gun Min-Jun had left in the panic room. Her hands shook, but her aim was steady. Get out. The man laughed. You won't shoot. He was wrong. Adanna pulled the trigger. The bullet hit the man's shoulder, spinning him around. His men rushed in, but they were met with a hail of gunfire from behind. Min-Jun's reinforcements had arrived, called by silent alarms. The battle was over in minutes. Adanna dropped the gun and ran, searching through the smoke and bodies. She found Min-Jun lying in the hallway, covered in blood. She collapsed beside him, pressing her hands to the worst wound. You're not dead, she said fiercely. You don't get to be dead. Min-Jun's eyes opened. He smiled, blood on his teeth. Bossy. Shut up and stay alive. That's my ghost, he whispered. I'm not your ghost. Adanna was crying now. I'm not her replacement. I'm not your second chance. I'm Adanna. Just Adanna. And if you die, you don't get to see what we could be. What could we be? His voice was fading. Something real. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics pulled her away from him, loaded him onto a stretcher. She fought to stay with him, but his second-in-command held her back. He'll live, the man said. Boss is too stubborn to die. He was right. 6 months later. Adanna stood on the balcony of their new home, overlooking Seoul. Not Min-Jun's old compound, they'd left that behind, along with everything it represented. This place was theirs, not Ji-woo's ghosts. Arms wrapped around her waist from behind. You're up early, Min-Jun murmured against her neck. Couldn't sleep. Too much to think about. Like what? Like how I went from hotel cleaner to mob boss's girlfriend in one insane year. Technically, you're mob boss's partner now. You do manage half my legitimate businesses. Adanna turned in his arms. Is any of your business legitimate? Some of it. He smiled, and it still surprised her every time, how human he could look when he wasn't pretending to be a monster. I'm reforming. You're a terrible influence. Good. They'd spent 6 months rebuilding. Min-Jun had dismantled the trafficking operations, shifted the Kang family's focus to legal enterprises. It would take years to clean up completely, but they were trying. Together. Adanna had returned to university, finishing her degree. She'd also started a foundation for immigrant workers in Seoul, funded by Min-Jun's money and her own fierce determination. Her mother had come to visit last month. She'd been suspicious of Min-Jun at first, but he'd won her over the way he did everything, with patience, persistence, and completely inappropriate amounts of money. The new house he'd bought her family in Lagos had helped. Do you miss her? Adanna asked quietly. Ji-woo? Min-Jun considered the question. I miss the idea of her. Who I thought we could be. But I don't miss her anymore. How could I, when I have you? That's cheesy. You love it. She did. You know what's weird? Adanna said. When we started, you said what began as captivity would become obsession, and obsession would become love. You were right. I usually am. Don't push it. She kissed him to shut him up. But it's more than that. What started as a replacement became the real thing. What started as survival became living, Min-Jun added. What started as a lie became truth. What started as a ghost became a life. They stood there, watching the sun rise over Seoul, two broken people who'd somehow made each other whole. Somewhere in the city below, life continued. People rushed to work, fell in love, faced their own impossible choices. And high above them, in a glass apartment overlooking it all, a Nigerian girl and a Korean mobster proved that sometimes the most impossible loves are the ones worth fighting for. I love you, Adanna said. I know, Min-Jun replied. You shot someone for me. I love you despite being completely insane for doing so. I love you despite being the reason you had to. She laughed, and he caught the sound with another kiss. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and built on a foundation of trauma and terrible decisions. But it was theirs. Real and raw and worth every impossible moment. This was their story. From auction block to partnership. From replacement to irreplaceable. From captivity to choosing to stay. And in the end, that choice made all the difference.